Nowadays, many Americans will enter retirement and still have a mortgage payment, or they could end up leaving this debt to their children. According to Annie Nova, a reporter with CNBC, states that in recent studies, over 70% of Americans around the age of 60 still owed an average mortgage of $70,000. Now, this is due to rising house costs, uh, long-term mortgages with little to no down payment, and people buying bigger homes with a larger mortgage. But do these people really need such big homes? At their age, probably not. But they've gotten used to the extra space and wouldn't know how to start downsizing at that point. So what if we started now? Preparing yourself for a minimalistic lifestyle so one day you'll be able to retire debt-free. I'm talking about tiny house living. My family and I built a 12 by 32 foot home on a trailer. So believe me when I say I know all the drawbacks and benefits to living this type of lifestyle. So will you be able to retire debt-free? Nobody knows for sure. Nobody can be 100% prepared for anything. But we can attempt to get ready for what is known. And we know that one day we'll get older and we won't be able to work and we'll want to enjoy the remaining rest of our days. Which is why I'd like to try to convince you now, while you're young and in college, still figuring out what you want to do with the rest of your life, to consider living smaller by building or purchasing a tiny home. Building my tiny house 5 years ago was the best decision I ever made. It can save you money, it's better for the environment, and you can move it wherever you want. It will literally change your life. Now, the best reason, or my personal favorite, is that it saves money. Many of us are either living with parents, renting, or live in an apartment. But could you imagine owning your own home? Or at least investing your money into something that is yours and you can design any way you want, unlike living in an apartment where you can't even paint the walls. The first decision to make is going to be whether you're going to build it or you're going to buy it. Now, I personally believe that building it gives you more options to personalize. You get to find deals, which can save you even more money. But if building is absolutely out of the question, you could purchase one. Life hack author Catherine Harper puts the current price range from less than $19,000 to around $50,000, depending on the size and the kind of finishes you want. In a traditional home, if you want to replace the flooring, it's going to cost you thousands of dollars. But in a tiny home, you have a smaller area to cover. So you could use recycled materials, or you could even, if you have to buy it new, it's a much smaller amount. We must also consider that on top of rent, we also have utility bills. And the smaller home heats up and cools down much faster. Plus, even if every single light in the house is on, it's like 4 lights. So the electricity cost is very minimal, which will not only save you money, but is also better for the environment. With a smaller home, you do not need to consume so much energy. Tristan Perry with supertinyhomes.com states that an average size house can produce up to 28,000 pounds of greenhouse gas emissions each year, where a tiny home is in the 2,000 pound range, which is much smaller. Some people even make their tiny homes with solar panels or wind power, so reducing their carbon footprint even more. Some people even make them off-grid entirely. Now, some people will go out and build a huge house on a large plot of land, and Joe Pinsker from the Atlantic website states why this is. Many people feel peer pressure to have what their neighbor or their friends have, and America has outranked every other country by having the biggest home by over 800 square feet. Not to mention that American land use regulations tend to be more lax than those elsewhere, which we see this all too often. When a large parcel of land that is being used for farmland gets sold to someone rich and they build a McMansion, and now the only people that can afford to live there are the very wealthy who could care less what happens to the land. So it goes to waste. Now, this doesn't mean that living in a tiny home is going to keep farmland in the hands of farmers, but when you start living smaller, you'll begin to think of ways to be more efficient overall, which I think we all should be. For one, like decluttering your life. Most people have things that they really don't need. When you live in a tiny home, you will realize the things that you need versus the junk that you never use. For some people who have a ton of stuff or must have a ton of stuff, this is going to be more difficult. As ABC News reporter Heather Levin points out, organization in a tiny home is a must, and you probably aren't going to be able to have everything you want. You'll have to sacrifice. Many people have adopted a minimalistic lifestyle by living in a small apartment, which works considering the idea is saving money and space. Some would even argue that a 20-story apartment building saves more farmland than many little single-story homes, which is true, but unfortunately it still comes with the weight of being tied down to one area, and the fact that you're putting money into something that you'll never own. Now, obviously, this is not a decision that should be taken lightly. It is a huge life change. Now, even though it will save money in the long run, the investment can be really big at first. So you need to be sure that it's something that you want to do, something that you could actually live with. Now, with that said, you could always sell it if you change your mind, as tiny homes are becoming more and more popular. For me, the decision was easy. I was sick of living paycheck to paycheck and for paying for something that would never be mine. And I was definitely not ready for a mortgage. This is why we decided to make the change from living in an apartment to building our tiny home. So whatever the reason you find most appealing to make the switch, whether it's to save money, reduce your carbon footprint, or declutter your life, maybe you're just not ready to start paying a mortgage like I wasn't. Keep in mind that the most important thing is that one day you'll be able to enjoy your retirement debt and stress-free. Thank you.